This is Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Here is Louie Butko.
Yes, the show Speaking with the Enemy. The enemy this week, the enemy the next 2 weeks, the Ottawa Redblacks. And here to discuss the voice of the Redblacks on TSN 1200. He's also an afternoon host there. It's AJ Jakubec. And AJ, I mean, this is probably best case scenario for the Redblacks. They can kind of control their own destiny. They'll need some help from the Stampeders. But if I had told you a month ago that the Redblacks were 2 wins away and some luck from making the playoffs, would you even have believed me at that point?
Sadly, yes, because
you're the internal.
I looked at the standings and I looked at Saskatchewan, who have been at a tailspin ever since the Garrett Marino incident, right? And so, actually, I kind of envisioned, just planning ahead in terms of, when they might be eliminated. I just thought, if they had 4 wins, I thought they would still be in the mix mathematically, right? Yeah. They really needed a win last week. Had they won last week, I think it would have been real. Now it feels like it's mathematical. Yeah, they can win both games, but, Calgary's probably going to be resting a bunch of guys the last week of the season. Are Saskatchewan going to get swept by a team that maybe has nothing to play for? Find it hard to believe, probably get 1 win there. So, I feel like, look, if you're Hamilton, 1 win's probably going to get it done. If they win this week, they could clinch by the end of the weekend as long as Saskatchewan loses to Calgary. And I feel like Saskatchewan's going to lose to Calgary. I think these are going to be 2 pretty good football teams because I think Ottawa has a bit of a renewed approach since Bob Dice took over as the interim head coach, and the Ticats are playing the kind of football that I expected them to play all season, with pretty big wins recently against Winnipeg at home and then in Calgary last weekend. So Hamilton's certainly in the driver's seat, A, because they control their own destiny, and B, they just don't need the kind of help that Ottawa has. But I think we're going to see 2 pretty good football games, and it's kind of wild that at 4-12 you would still have, even if it is a long shot at this stage, a chance to make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, to that point, and we'll get to the Bob Dice stuff. I mean, even if they don't admit it publicly that they don't think they can do it, they're all going to say the right things. I have to get the sense that with Jalen on the team, with Lorenzo having a career year on the team, with Berkey up in the front office, this is probably a group of players, Jackson Bennett, this is probably a group of players that would embrace the idea of spoiling the party for the Ticats, if not, this week, the week to do it, especially in Hamilton. Do you get the sense that guys are a little more amped up for this one because of that?
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to see Jalen Acklin because he didn't practice the last couple of days, suffered that head injury and shoulder injury on the double hit to the head, Micah Awe and then Adarius Pickett. They were both fined on the same play. You don't see that very often, but still ruled out for this one here this weekend. I mean, Lorenzo Malton's having a sensational season. I think he'll be a lock for one of the spots in terms of all-star defensive ends, not just in the East, but in the entire CFL. He's had a monstrous season and the best pass rusher in Ottawa Redblacks history. So I can say that comfortably. I know Abdul Kana certainly echoed that and then some when I made that suggestion earlier in the season. And he was part of, some of the best Redblacks teams early on, especially some of the best Redblacks defenses. The best Redblacks defense, in my opinion, was the one in 2015 when they ended up beating Hamilton in the East Final, had 12 wins and lost to Edmonton in the Grey Cup. So, I mean, they've got some great additions, but I don't think the focus is about spoiling. I think the focus is on themselves. And again, as long as they still have a chance to make the playoffs, the focus is just going to be on winning this game, controlling what you can control. And who knows, maybe you get some help from Calgary and at the very least, you go into the last weekend of the season still with something to play for. The one thing that's fascinating about this team is, they could end up sweeping the East on the road. They're 3-0 against the East so far this year. They won 2 in Montreal. They won 1 in Toronto. They won 1 other game in Edmonton. So Imagine that. You could see a team go 5-4 on the road and 4-0 on the road if within your own division and still miss the playoffs because they haven't won a home game. It is strange, but for whatever reason, this team, it's the only franchise since 2014 that has a better road record than home record. So to think that that's an advantage or a disadvantage, I think this team feels comfortable and confident wherever they go away from home.
Let's talk about head coach Bob Dice. Coach had mentioned it. Orlando Steinauer had mentioned it. It's the same players from all season, but Coach Dice has been able to get something, maybe a little extra out of him. Is that just let's win it for the new coach? Is there something he's been doing differently? What have you seen under Coach Dice the last few weeks that gives you some encouragement about this group that they have right now?
I think first and foremost, you hear it from the players, but they have to go out and act, and you see it from the players on the field. No doubt, they've stated all along, ever since he arrived in 2016 as the special teams coordinator, and they've been consistently amongst the best in the league in that department, that they love playing for him. I think two reasons: because of what kind of man he is, but I think more important, how he holds them accountable. He holds them to a high standard. If they don't reach the standard that he sets for them, he holds them accountable and demands more of them. And I think that's what you want out of a coordinator, but that's also what you want out of a head coach, because it's not just about, you want to play for a coach that you like, but you want to play for a coach who wants the best for you. And sometimes, players, coaches, quote unquote, can be, too nice, right? And maybe not hold guys to account the way they need to. And that's not the case with Bob Dice. And I think that's why he's got the chance to be successful long-term if he ends up getting the position in the offseason. So there's that. In terms of other changes, I think what you've seen out of the offense, they play a little bit more up-tempo. They are a little more aggressive, more shots down the field. So there's been that. We'll see what this week brings. Again, a lot of injuries on this team. They were missing 6 key starters last weekend and add a couple to the list this weekend with right tackle Dino Boyd and Nigel Romick still a question mark for this week as well, one of their top special teams players. So, it's not going to be easy. The good news is, because they've had quite a few injuries this season, a lot of these guys aren't new to the CFL, aren't new to playing this year when they played last week. And a lot of those guys look good. And certain guys stepped up. Ciosi Mariner was playing his first ever CFL game. He was the one guy that was brought back in that hadn't played all season because of the injuries to their receivers. And he looked fantastic and got his first CFL touchdown reception in the process. And a guy that has worked in the past with Nick Arbuckle in summers, working together. So already they've got a rapport. So, it'll be a challenge, but, this group still believes that they can win. They certainly believe in their head coach right now, in Bob Dice, and we'll see if they can make it really interesting down the stretch.
These guys believe they can win, but I mean, they have to look, like you said, mathematically, it's going to take 2 wins. It's going to take some help. So is there an aspect of, whether it's Sean Burke, whether it's Bob Dice, whether it's guys auditioning for their jobs? I mean, a lot of what we're going to see the next 2 weeks, is it going to be 2023 or is it going to be, okay, let's just focus on one game at a time here?
It's 2022. As long as you're alive, it's 2022. No, now, I mean, this is not mathematical with 6 games left and you need, this team to win and that team to win and this team to tie and your brother's uncle to do you a favor and that sort of thing, right? This is real. It's 2 wins and 2 Saskatchewan losses, and Saskatchewan isn't free fall mode and they're starting Mason Fine at quarterback. So, look, it's still a long shot. I get it, but absolutely, it's full throttle 2022 mode for this year. And I think even no matter what happens this weekend, I think your last game is at home. Let's say Hamilton wins this weekend and you're eliminated. You're absolutely going to do whatever you can. And you might give a couple of guys a look that you might want to see. But beyond that, I think you're going to give your team the best chance to win. If you're Bob Dice, you want to do that because you want to show that, you're going to be the best guy for the job. But I think most importantly, you want to get rid of that zero in terms of 0 home wins this year, 1 home win in their last 23 games. It's an incredible stat. It's terrible if you're an Ottawa fan, but there are 2 teams in Edmonton and Ottawa that just can't win home games over the last handful of seasons. And I think for Ottawa, no matter what happens this weekend, they're going to be doing whatever they can to try and get the goose egg at home out of the way for this season. And I think at least then you're not starting next year with a little bit of an anchor where, fans are already saying, okay, well, you haven't won at home since the middle of the season in 2021, and you've only won 1 since early 2019. So, yeah, I don't think there's any way that they start to pull into next season mode, and certainly not this weekend when you're still very much alive in the playoff chase.
You mentioned the injuries. I mean, what's going to need to go right for the Red Blacks this week in Hamilton? What's going to have to connect? Where are they going to have to win this game if they do want to keep their season and playoff hopes alive?
Well, they can't turn the ball over. They got away with it in Montreal with a couple of key fumbles that, they ended up holding Montreal to a couple of field goals on. But, this past weekend, they had a strip sack for a fumble that led to a touchdown when they were dominating the first half. And in the end, 7-point lead at halftime could have and should have been a lot more. And I think that's the biggest thing, just making sure you take care of the football. I think Nick Arbuckle's done a better job in terms of his decision-making, but they fumbled the ball 4 times in the last 2 weeks and lost 4 fumbles in the last 2 weeks. So that to me is probably the biggest thing, is just ensuring that you don't beat yourself. Let the Hamilton Tiger Cats beat you. Let Dane Evans beat you and some of the other key players beat you, but don't beat yourself with bad turnovers and bad mistakes.
We mentioned Lorenzo Malden. We mentioned Jalen Acklin, who unfortunately won't be playing in this game, who was having an all-star season and hopefully will still, at least in the East, get some love, if not league-wide, because he's still top 5 in receiving yards for the season. But Jackson Bennett had a very special moment on the field. What have you seen from him? And a guy who obviously knows the city well, Ottawa guy, went to Ottawa, University of Ottawa. A special moment, but what have you seen from him as the guy in Ottawa, at least lately?
Yeah, and first off, congratulations to Jackson Bennett and Haley Phillips on a pretty special moment. It's funny, I had interviewed him the day before for our player profile, and he talked about how, he had already bought a house with his girlfriend and all that kind of stuff. And, impressive guy. He's taking engineering right now in school, and, playing football. So he's talking about having tests in the middle of the pro football season. And so really impressive young man. So yeah, awesome moment. There haven't been a lot of fantastic moments when you lose 8 straight at home over the course of your season, but that was certainly one of them after the game. But on the field, a guy that's very capable. They've had a couple of injuries at running back with Devontae Williams and William Powell, and Jackson Bennett has looked every bit the part as a starter that the other 2 have as well. More of a north-south power runner, but really impressive young man, and a guy that, was a running back through high school and played for the Ottawa GGs as a defensive back and brought into the CFL that way, transferred back to running back in Hamilton, and certainly a guy that I think has a bright future, not just in the CFL still, but also in terms of what he's doing off the field, both with his lovely new fiance and with everything he's doing with his education as well.
There's one thing, people who listen to either one of my shows here on the Ticats Audio Network, I love St. Catharines, and I love people from St. Catharines. Keaton Brueggeling is one of those guys, a rookie, obviously, but got into some game action. Jalen Acklin's hurt. I mean, we've seen great Canadian receivers come out of Ottawa before. Not putting that on his shoulders yet, but what have you seen from him early on in his career? Where do you think the ceiling is for a guy like that?
It's looked really good. I thought, made a couple of catches last week, and one was a fantastic catch that was behind him and contorted his body to find a way to make the catch. So yeah, really impressed with what I've seen. He's been solid in special teams, but certainly looks like he's got a bright future. I know they were pretty high on him out of camp. They feel like they got a really good draft this year. Daniel Valentes and other players playing at Western right now. And between those two, Cyril Hogan-Saint-Don, who started a handful of games this year, and Zach Pelios, another offensive lineman, they feel like they've got 4 players that can play in the league for a long time. So, yeah, I've been really impressed with what I've seen so far to Keaton Brugling, and certainly a guy that looks like he's got a pretty bright future in this league.
Listen, and one thing I've learned about watching Sean Burke work the last 4 or 5 seasons here in Hamilton is that I will never question his ability at the CFL draft. He's found some real gems in the CFL draft, and I'm sure that's no exception. I might get in trouble this from my bosses, but I got to ask you, Atletico Ottawa, what a year, finishing first, capturing the regular season championship. Looks like they're in control. There is a game to be played on Sunday, but it looks like, or whatever this week, it looks like they're in control. What is that football team meant to that city this season, especially? And are you surprised that here they are, on the verge of playing for a championship in just their 3rd year?
I'm not surprised because I knew who was behind them. Right? It's Atletico Madrid. I get the sense they weren't overly happy with how the second season in particular went. The first season, you were there in the bubble with me and PEI. And
I forgot I blocked that out. Oh no, I blocked that out, AJ.
A lot of good memories, especially on the ping pong table. So a lot of good memories, and for them, they had a team that was basically cobbled together in weeks to play in that competition. The next year was a major disappointment, and I don't think they're very happy with how things went. New coach with Carlos Gonzalez, and he's been fantastic, both in terms of man management and what he's done tactically as well. So, yeah, not overly surprised. I thought going into the season, I was really impressed with my dealings with Carlos, and with what they brought in. I thought this is a playoff team. So, yeah, not overly surprised, and not surprised at the other teams that are in the playoffs, in Pacific Forge and Cavalry. Pacific won the league last year, of course, in Hamilton, and Forge and Cavalry have been, since day one, the standard that has been set in the league. And it's been a very high standard, which is fantastic for Canadian soccer. And I think you're seeing that with some of the players move on to higher levels, and you're going to see more players like that this year. So, yeah, it's exciting for Ottawa soccer. An opportunity to host a final. They've hosted a semifinal before 7 years ago with Ottawa Fury against Minnesota United. It was their last game before they went to MLS. There were 10,000 people there, and Atletico Ottawa ended up winning the game in extra time and going to the NASL final. They lost that to Raul and Marcus Senna. They were both on 1.5 million euros, which was more than the squad was making combined. In Ottawa, put up a pretty good fight, but lost 3-2 to the New York Cosmos. And then, it's been kind of a bit of a soap opera on and off the pitch, since then. But now stability, new league, a lot of excitement here. And, yeah, it would be fantastic if they can find a way to host the game, whether it's against Forge or Cavalry, either way. Just want to see them get there because, a lot of excitement surrounding Canada soccer right now. Yeah. On the women's side with the gold that they won in Tokyo, and on the men's side with the World Cup approaching in Qatar. Great time to be a soccer fan in this country.
And like you said, in Ottawa, definitely well-deserved, especially with the way the Fury ended there at the end, to see them with a winner. And maybe if it's against Forge, maybe I'll see you down there because it should be a great game. Yeah, it should be a great game in the nation's capital. Okay, all right. I might need to call in sick for one of my other jobs. But AJ, appreciate this as always, man. I know you're a very busy man. Your Senators played a crazy game earlier this week against the Boston Bruins, so I'm sure that kept you on the edge of your seat. So I appreciate you making some time this evening for me. So thank you.
No excuses next weekend because it's Ticats in Ottawa Saturday, and if Forge make it Sunday, there's no excuses. You should be there.
My other job is an excuse right at the top of the list.
All
AJ,
right,
thanks for doing this, brother. Take care.
Cheers, Louie.
My thanks to AJ Jakubec for joining me today. My thanks to you as well. As always, Speaking with the Enemy is brought to you by Red Tag, who says summer is over. Set your own rules and secure your winter escape in the hottest Caribbean destinations with redtag.ca. With resorts selling out fast, now is the time to secure your spot on the beach. See the world your way with redtag.ca. Book now. That's all for us today. We are back next week on an all-new Speaking with the Enemy. From all of us here on the Ticats Audio Network, I'm Louie Butko. Hope you have a great day.